Hey, this is John Duggan, and you're watching WithoutYourHead.com.
Welcome to the station of decapitation without your head. I'm Nasty Neal, and I'm joined by iconic scream queen, TERI MCMINN. How are you doing?
Yay! I'm good, Neal. Thanks so much for inviting me to your show.
Thanks for doing it. I know, you don't do a lot of interviews about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, so it's very cool that you're on here. Why didn't you do some of the DVDs?
Well, actually, I've done a lot of interviews since I came out in 2008.
Ah.
So maybe you just haven't. Yeah, no, I haven't. But before that, I had left acting, probably about 10 years after we filmed the movie. I had done a lot of stage and leg and foot modeling. I moved to New York, and I was always working. I was either managing restaurants or waiting tables for years. I did that. And then I started my own flower business, both in L.A. and then I did it also from 1990 until 2003 in Austin, Texas. So when you run your own business or you're running somebody else's business, like I managed hotels for years, I just didn't really have any time, and I wasn't acting anymore. I kind of put that in a drawer after I turned about 35, I guess, And so I had never really liked my performance in Chainsaw.
Fair enough.
A lot of, that's not uncommon for a lot of actors. And everybody else was going to the conventions. Gunnar was going, Marilyn, Ed, John, everybody else was, but I wasn't going to the conventions. And back in the 90s, when I had my flower business in Austin, Gunnar would come into town, and he would bring a stack of pictures over and for me to sign, and he'd pay me $5, and then he'd sell them for 15. So he was always a pretty good businessman. And but that was as close as I was going to get, to doing anything. And then around 2007, they came to me in New Line Cinema, wanted me to come out and do an interview, and I got to the point where I even met the guy at a restaurant, and I just looked at him and I said, I'm not up to this, And so I felt really, really bad. But then the next year, 2008, I did my first interview for the Blu-ray release. And that's pretty, I like that interview. And it's on YouTube. You can see it. I posted it on Pam's page. Pam, the original Chainsaw Gal, is the name. I made Pam get her own page after a few years. And I was getting, all these, like one guy from France was sending me headless torsos, and by that time I had written the stories Pam Lives, and they were very, very, very popular. So I said, Elaine, you have to stop doing this. She wasn't decapitated. So anyway, it's been quite a journey since 2008.
Yeah. Now, I know you said you were busy and everything, but has your opinion of the movie changed over the years as well?
Well, yeah. I mean, when I finally came out, and it was just when I was kind of going online, learning how to use the computer and all of that. I was a little late. You probably came out of the womb connected to one, but
not really.
For those of us that were born more than a half century ago, it wasn't the same. So what happened was I came out, and people started talking about my scene of me walking up to the house, which I had always been just mortified by, that scene, because, first of all, I was afraid that my mother and my Aunt Jerry would see that my cheeks were cinnamon soap and Technicolor. And so I needn't have worried, though, because neither of them ever saw the film. They were so supportive, But anyway, so I came out, and people started saying, but Terry, your scenes are taught in directing classes across the world. And I said, oh, you got to be kidding me. That's just not possible. And so I made myself go on YouTube and watch my scenes, And after 35 years of beating myself up, I finally said, oh, Terry, you weren't so bad. Stop that. And so I began to embrace everything, and it was good, because 35 years of beating yourself up, Neal, is just plenty. Okay?
Yes, yeah, 30, yeah. That's where you draw the line. 35. Up till then, it's fine. But yeah, I was going to ask about that scene, and I was trying to think of how to ask about it without sounding like a perv or anything. But it's like it's an iconic shot, and I was just when you're filming it, did you realize how it would look? And then the first time you saw it on screen, what did you think?
Oh well, yes. I walked out to the set the day that that swing was on the porch until a few days before we were going to shoot the scene, which I had never talked to anyone about. I had no agent representing me. I was a serious actress. I was, actually doing stage work at night and getting my own little standing ovations to, doing that. So I took my career very seriously, and this was in 1973. This was before there wasn't a lot of nudity, and the horror genre wasn't a genre. It was called scab movies, B movies. It was just a step above porn. So, serious actors wanted to get into the unions. This was a non-union film. You didn't do non-union film. It was just frowned upon entirely, And at that point, I was trying to get into Screen Actors Guild, into AFTRA, and I wanted to get my Actors Equity card. That was what was important back then. You didn't have cable. There was no cable, And so, anyway, everything was different. And when here I was wearing my red short shorts, which, by the way, were jeans, cord before they were short shorts. But I had a motorcycle, and when summer came, I had, I thought, well, heck, I've worn the heck out of these things. I'll just cut them into shorts. So I cut them into some little short shorts, and they had me bring in a bunch of my own clothes to pick from, and they picked what you saw on the screen. Everything you saw is what they picked. And so I was quite aware that, they were short, but when someone puts a camera 14 inches beneath your butt, and so I looked out of the corner of my eye, and Dottie Pearl, who was married to Daniel, the cinematographer at that time, I said, Dottie, what is Daniel doing underneath that swing? I don't know. She didn't know. And so, anyway, I went over and I said, why is Daniel under the swing? And I started, telling Toby, what are you doing? What are you doing? And we got into a good little argument. And I just said, I am not going to do that. I mean, they had asked me after they ran out of money 2 weeks in. We came back to the set, and Kim approached me about doing nude swimming scenes with Turk. And I said, absolutely freaking not. I am not. No. So I really was very suspicious. I didn't know them.
Right.
Didn't know these people. And so Toby and I argued, and and then finally he said, and this is where I will curse for one brief
All right, fair enough.
Oh, God damn it, Terry, we're going to shoot all around it. Well, Neal, that is exactly what they did. They shot all around it. So I reluctantly did the scene, and when I must say, I wasn't afraid of seeing anything except that scene when I finally got to see the film. A year later, I drove to Tomball, Texas, where my sister lived, and I took my 10-year-old nephew with me, and I swore that I would kill him, literally, if he told anyone that was me. And of course, the whole movie, it's a matinee, a Saturday matinee, so it's all screaming kids, And you can imagine what seeing a film like that for the first time is like for kids.
Oh yeah, it's a very disturbing film. Even now with all kinds of crazy movies since.
Right. So naturally, my nephew's going around. That's my aunt on the street. That's my aunt. And I just really was. I was mortified when I saw my butt in CinemaScope and wide Technicolor. Oh, my God. I was sunk really low in my seat. I was looking through my fingers at the screen. The meat hook scene didn't matter at all because I could barely breathe by the time that came on. So that was my experience with that scene.
All right. This is a great answer. What about filming the meat hook scene? You said you didn't mind watching it when it was finished, but how was it technically done?
Well, okay, so the night before, they did not know until the night before how they were going to film it. So what they did is Dottie and Bob Burns, who was the art director, got together and they came up with a contraption that was sort of like a chastity belt, and it was made of parachute strapping, foam in the crotch area, and then a piece of parachute strapping coming up the back. And then underneath the bathing suit, they used a pair of stretched pantyhose that she tacked into the inside that kept that was the kind of pulled the chastity belt up, so that it stayed on, and it was a very glamorous thing to wear. And then Toby, the director, spotted me when Gunnar held me up to put me on the meat hook, and they pulled out the strap with the parachute loop to hook over the meat hook. And so that we started at around 9 a.m, and we were done by noon. And it was probably one of the most painless scenes for me because it went very quickly. Everything was... Toby had asked me the day before what I thought I would do in the scene, and I said, I've thought about it, and I thought that if I wasn't hung on, it didn't hit, the meat hook didn't penetrate a strategic part of my spine, that I might be able to move, and I might try and get off the meat hook. And he said, yeah, let's go with that. So that's what we went with. And what you saw, was actually, when we finished the scene, Sally, Ted Nicolau's wife at that time, and his 3-year-old daughter had just come with all the lunch. Sally was an incredible cook, and we had great luncheon. And we finished the scene. I'm hanging on the meat hook, and there was not, I mean, you could hear a pin drop. Everyone was, whoa. They we kind of all knew that we had something, because before that, nothing seemed to have really come together. I don't know how to describe it, but it was a bit loose-ended up until that point, I believe. But at that point, after that scene, I think everybody kind of went, okay, all right.
Yeah, now we have something, yeah.
Yeah.
How about Gunnar himself? Because when you watch a movie, it looks like he's really manhandling you. What was he like to work with?
Oh, well, Gunnar and I got along fine then, but you don't know that he was my ex-boyfriend, George's roommate, housemate.
Oh, okay.
And we were deadly enemies because he kept taking George out to look for girls and drink. And, of course, I wasn't exactly happy about that.
Sure, I can see that.
And so Gunnar and I were deadly enemies. I finally broke off with George. And, by the way, his name was George Bush Jr. And anyway, George was a pathological liar. And so I finally got rid of George. I said, George, I've had a year of this, and I'm done, And with that, I thought I would never see the wonderful Gunnar Hansen again in my life. And I was just fine about that, too. And I walked into they had an RV that was where we signed our contracts and all this kind of stuff. And we never got to go in it except for that, so there was no air conditioning anywhere. But anyway, I heard Kim he was about midway through where there was somebody very large with their back to me sitting. And Kim said, hey, Terry, come here, I want you to meet Leatherface. So I got even with Leatherface. And he turned and looked at me, and I looked at him, and we both jumped back and went, what are you doing here? So we had to go for coffee to repair that relationship. And pretty much we put everything behind us. I think, we both kind of carried those feelings on for decades, but, we got along. We got along, you know what I mean? And he was fine in the scenes. He was strong. He weighed 365 pounds when we filmed that thing. So, what you see is me literally fighting for my life, and we did that all day.
And I assume there was no double or anything. It's you doing all the scenes.
No, and I couldn't move or turn over. They had to get my understudy to play my role because I was on stage 3 hours every night, But there was no way. I couldn't even turn over in my bed. I could barely walk to the bathroom. I mean, it was hell. And I lost my voice toward the end of the day. So I was drinking Jack Daniel's neat just to keep screaming. So that was brutal. Brutal. But I think it looks very realistic. So
definitely. Yeah, I actually think that's something that's. Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying, I think that's something that's missing in a lot of modern horror movies is the realism of when someone's being killed or tortured or something. It is, if you don't really sell that, you kind of takes you out of it. But I think part of the best parts of Texas Chainsaw Massacre is you really believe these horrible things are happening to these people.
Yeah, and I'm very pleased with it now, and I never saw that for all those years. There were some bad feelings because we didn't really get our portion of the money that we signed contracts for. And, that kind of hurt when you saw how famous
Sure.
became and how much money they were making, And, last year I got $200. What happened was when they resold it to other places, to Roger Corman's company, and they got it back and all that, they made new contracts. And, the only thing we got any part of, even through the 80s, it was the most rented video of the 80s, know. And we were only paid if it was shown on the big screen. And after a video came out, after the first year, it wasn't shown on the big screen, So I just kind of wanted to be done with it. They had held me up and wouldn't let me take another job. I was dead broke. I couldn't pay my rent because they, we were going to film for 2 weeks and we filmed for 6 weeks. So the waiting job that paid for my school, my apartment, my phone, my whatever, I was broke, Neal.
Sure, yeah.
And they had to do some pickup scenes, and I told Kim, I said, look, I've got a 6 week scene. I negotiated for myself $600 a week to do this play I had been doing with Peter Breck to go on the road with it, and I would get $600 a week. Well, $3,600 at that time is like $10,000-$15,000 now, right? And I was just so brokenhearted because they just got really nasty with me. And it was just one day of pickup scenes they needed. Me sitting on the porch, the picture of me where on Wikipedia where I've got my head in my hands. Yeah. Okay, that picture was on that day of pickup shots when I had to turn down the 6 week engagement. Yeah. So I was not happy, Neal.
I don't blame you. Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, I guess I just kind of, wanted to just to move on with my life. Let me put it that way, right?
No, I can totally understand.
It took 10 years for that movie to become famous. For 10 years, we took it off. Marilyn took it off her resume. I took it off mine. Bill took it off his.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that's how controversial it was. It was banned across Europe. It was banned. It wasn't even, did you know that it was banned in Germany until 2013?
Really? And I know it's really popular in Germany. That's really...
It was black marketed, though.
Yeah, right, yeah.
You see, right? And so we went to Germany in 2013. I had no idea it had been banned in Germany. The Germans have some of the most, like the Japanese, some of the most, horror you've ever seen. So maybe they just forgot they had banned it? I don't know.
Yeah, we actually have a caller from Germany, one of our most loyal listeners to the show, and I believe she gets a lot of her movies in other countries when she goes to film fest, because they don't if they sell them in Germany, they're very really cut up. But interestingly enough, though, you're going to be in England for the Birmingham Horror Convention on October 28th, 29th. So it's kind of weird. The movie that that was banned for so long, and then now you're going to be at a convention there talking about it.
Yes, I'm excited. I'm going to Birmingham. I'll leave here on the 26th, and then I will stay in Birmingham until after it's over on the 29th. And then I'm going to visit with a friend in Warwickshire, which is actually the home of Shakespeare.
Oh, awesome.
And so I'm hoping to get to go there for a day.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go stay with some friends in Belgium, just outside Brussels. I'm going to stay there until I go to Germany, to Oberhausen for the House of Horrors.
Yes, that's our listener Vera Newhoff. She'll be there. So
Oh,
I'll give her a little
really?
shout out here on
Okay.
the show. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Good. Then I'll get to meet Vera.
Yeah, and I'm actually happy you said that because, I do a lot of conventions, not nearly as many as you, but, sometimes if you just go to the convention, all you see is the hotel. But I always think it's cool to stay in a couple of days so you can see the area you're in.
Right. I went to Cardiff and Rotterdam for a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So they had messed up my flights, and so I caught a flight 3 hours later because the flight that they had originally booked me on, I wouldn't have gotten there in time to make my connecting flight,
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, long story shorter, I really flew for almost 24 hours, so I was exhausted.
Yeah.
I get to Rotterdam, and I haven't been able to sleep because it's hard to sleep on planes for me. And I went to the convention in Rotterdam on Saturday. Saturday evening, right after the show, they fly us to Cardiff.
Mm-hmm.
So I was there one day, and then I flew out Monday morning at 6:00.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
It was miserable. You know what I mean? I mean,
yeah.
Sweet, dear fans and people.
Sure, of course.
The guy that drove me to the airport, I said, well, I didn't even get to see the castle.
Right, yeah.
He said,
right.
Okay, we'll drive by the castle.
Yeah, because people say, hey, how was Cardiff? And all that. It's like, well, I don't know. I was at the airport and the hotel. That's all I get to see.
I was at the airport, the hotel, and the convention center, So I didn't even have the energy to walk down to another restaurant when I was in Cardiff. I was just so tired. I did room service. John and I met in the bar for a glass of wine. He had a beer, and that's it. So yeah, this will be a lot of fun. I'm excited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm very surprised that John went out for a beer. That's totally unlike him.
Oh yeah, that's totally unlike John.
Yeah.
Although I do think Stacy has been a very good influence on him.
Yeah.
So John's become tamer than he ever was before.
Mm-hmm.
So, but he'll be out of her clutches for a few days. So. So I don't know what will happen to him.
right. So, you mentioned like there's all these crazy movies in Germany, and they still love Texas Chainsaw Massacre. What is it about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, do you think, that continues to find a new audience?
Well, let's face it. The film is in the Museum of Modern Art Film Archive. It's in the AFI Film Archives. It's in the Smithsonian Institute Film Archives. So it kind of started the genre. And I think that you care about the characters in the film.
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
Marilyn is outstanding.
Yep.
Gunnar was outstanding. Mm-hmm. Paul Partain, Bill, Alan. I thought everybody did a really good job, in the film. And I think that makes a big difference. Daniel's cinematography is, he's just great. I don't know if you've ever Googled his name. If you Google Daniel Pearl DP, and be sure to put the DP or the other one will come up.
All right.
Very
someone
sad.
Else.
Right. But if you will Google him, you will see that Daniel has shot videos that you never knew he shot. Beautiful vids. Janet Jackson, Shania Twain, Robert Palmer, Michael Jackson. He has shot videos of people you didn't know. And, those commercials that you've watched that are just so gorgeous that you actually don't mind seeing them a million times.
Right.
Some of those are Daniel's. And when you see, you'll get tired of scrolling. You won't believe it.
Well, I'm gonna do that. That's really cool. Real quick, you mentioned Paul Partain, and
Mhm.
I agree you feel for all the characters, but even when I was a kid, like I would watch Franklin, and part of me be like, man, I hope something. Not that I want to see someone get killed, but he's very annoying. Was Paul Partain anything like Franklin?
Well, I only met Paul Partain briefly when we started filming, and then Paul was an actor who liked to stay in character.
Oh, okay.
And so I wouldn't say that Paul was the most charming person, but I know Gunnar and he and Alan and all of them, because Paul was going to a few of the gatherings that they had, and he was friends with all of them after, I moved away, but many of them were here in Austin. And so they got to know the real Paul Partain, who I understand was adorable and sweet and wonderful. But unfortunately, I never really got to know that Paul. Right. But anyway, I don't want to badmouth him because he did a good job.
You definitely.
If people need to stay in character, that's their business,
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I always thought it was kind of, when I got older, I thought it was kind of funny that the handicapped character is kind of like this annoying guy in the movie, because you don't really normally see that. They want to portray him as so it's just kind of almost comical in a way that like a very dark comical that the
it is, they say that that's Sally's brother, but it's actually Sally's cousin. So nobody really knew about that, and it's something that I'll probably cover in my next story, but I do mention it, and some guy wrote me, he said, they weren't cousins, they were brother and sister. And, I had to correct him. And I said, well, I would know more than you would know, wouldn't I?
Right.
Which I thought was very funny. He got really miffed with me. And I thought, boy, these people take this all pretty seriously. But first convention I went to, people were walking up to me, and like one little girl was, oh, it's so wonderful to meet you. She was like crying, and I said, darling, I am here. I'm here for you. And I was pretty blown away. They had warned me that there were, fans. I call them fan addicts. But anyway, people said, I always wondered what happened to her, because the last time you see her, she pops out of the deep freeze.
Right.
And after I saw some of the follow-up chainsaws, I thought, they just need to get a good story and timeline.
Yeah.
And so in 2013, after I saw 3D, I said, that's it. I'm going to write Pam stories. And they've become very popular. In fact, I've sold out, and I tried to get some more published, but I've got a new publisher, and I haven't gotten them done, so bad me.
So where can you find those?
Where do I find them? Okay.
Yeah, where can we find them? Yeah, where can we read them?
You can read them for free. If you're my friend on my personal public page, they're in her notes. It's Pam Lives Part 1, Pam Lives Part 2, and then The Heart of Steve. And Pam has them on her notes, on her page. So you can read them there, and you'll see. I mean, people just went crazy over them. All the reviews are on my public personal page. When I first put them out, I kind of shyly put the first one out, and people liked it so much. I went, okay. So they're very, they're very compelling. I mean, you'll feel like, oh my God, they're very compelling. I'm very pleased with them. And I sold out, and so I sold about 60, 70 of them. And I've been intending to get more printed, but I just hadn't, because I offer a really good deal where you get 2 signed, you get a 5x7, then you get an original artwork of Pam escaping, a little postcard, and then I sign the book. So you get 3 signatures for $25.50, including shipping.
Well, that's a great deal.
yeah, it's a great deal. So I got a guy who got in too late. You know, he was about 3 months after I had sold out, or 6 months or whatever. He wrote me and he said, well, how come you don't have any more? And I mean, he wouldn't leave me alone. He's fine. You know, it was like, well, why aren't you getting them printed? Well, why aren't you doing this? And I finally said, well, why didn't you buy one when I had them? You know,
right.
that kind of shut him up, but he was rude. I mean, rude. It's like, hey, guy, get off my back. You know, I'm just trying to keep up with Facebook, for God's sake, you know.
Right. So that's it. Yeah, so that's a good thing for people to realize. If you're going to contact someone, you know, be nice to them. You don't be rude.
Wow, I was shocked. I could not believe this guy would cop some attitude with me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really funny when people want to ask me to change my political persuasions, and I have to remind them that I probably won't. It's like, I'm not going to write Clint Eastwood and say, hey, I don't understand the chair thing with you, you know? I mean, what do? You don't write to people and tell them to change their political views to suit yours, do you, Neal? I mean,
no.
I think that's just asking a little too much, you know.
Yeah.
So I had to put once this election period started in 2016, I had to put I put up my page guidelines. And
right.
now, you know, well, I'll just delete and block you if you get real nasty to me, you know. You start calling me some name or something, Neal, you can't be on my page, okay?
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I'm not going to call you snowflake or for anything.
Well, and, you know, they have tried, and they did not succeed too nicely, too well.
I don't blame you. I'm pretty sure we're pretty much on the same page politically, so you don't have to worry about that for me. Yeah,
you know, I just had to put my foot down because people thought they were going to, like, get rude and nasty and call people names, and, you know, and I mean on both sides, you know. So I just go in and I delete comments, or I let them have their say. If they aren't calling anybody any names, I'll let them have their say. And then once they've had their say, I say, okay, now you can go put anything else on your page, but you've had your say. You're done. And I think that's fair.
Yeah, it's fair. It's what I think that should be common sense. But
right.
Unfortunately, it's not.
Well, if you haven't read my page guidelines, you're going to get a good giggle, because toward the bottom, at the end of them, I do my thing. You know, I don't tell you what to think, and you don't rant on my page. I tell you what I think, and that's all I'm doing. You know, sharing my opinion, and I do have one.
Well, that's very good. Well, I do want to mention the website is horrorfan.co.uk for tickets for Birmingham HorrorCon Halloween special. And it's been a pleasure to talk with you, and I hope to do it again sometime. Well, I hope so too, Neal. I hope I get to meet you in the flesh someday. Yes. I've been in a lot. I don't know why. I've never run into you. Don't know why. Well, tell your promoters and tell your friends to tell their promoters. Invite TERI MCMINN. I will tell everyone that. And it's kind of just real quick. It's kind of a bittersweet thing. I hosted a panel. It was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre panel, and it was Marilyn, Gunnar, and John. And it's one of my highlights of doing the show. But it's also bittersweet because it was the last time all three of them were together. So. Where was that? I'm bad with. I think it was Indianapolis. No, it was Atlanta. It was Atlanta, I think. Atlanta. Yeah, because I was going to say we all were on a panel, I believe. Right. Yeah, I remember that was a big panel here. At Days of the. Were you at Days of the Dead when we? Yes, I was. I was at that one. But maybe we met and we didn't know it. Maybe so. I don't know how I can remember. But yeah, I did the Days of the Dead panel in Atlanta with the other three. Well, they were. Marilyn was my closest friend, so as you've probably seen, I've done a lot of tributes to her. And Gunnar was a wonderful man, and fans loved them both so much. So
They're very missed.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this interview, Neal. I really appreciate your asking me.
Thank you very much for doing it. I really appreciate it.
All right. You have a wonderful day.
You too.
This is Bill Johnson, and you're listening to WithoutYourHead.com. Feed your head.